Come on, we're going to talk about these.
Thank you for playing my favorite song, Alan. I appreciate that. So you know we have John Mrezek. Did I say it right? Sort of close. As our executive pastor, and part of our relationship with him is he comes down one day a month to share with us. Well, last month he decided to go on a cruise with his family instead of being at a board meeting. Can you believe that? More important than a board meeting. And so he is going to share with us today, and I know that I'm looking forward to sitting next to my wife and listening to what God has to say to us through His Word this morning. So welcome, John.
That was one of my bucket list items, and we wanted to try out a cruise. So we went on a little 4-day cruise. It was a lower cost cruise because we didn't know if I could be trapped on a boat for 4 days and survive. So ate too much, sat around too much, bobbed around too much. I think I checked that off for now, and I'm not going to ever do it again. One time's enough for me.
Where'd you go?
Went to Cozumel. Left out of Galveston, went down to Cozumel. We were on what we thought was a huge boat until it parked next to a huge boat. And then we found out we were on a rowboat compared to what the real boats look like. But they kept walking around trays of margaritas. And it's like, okay, what's a margarita cost? $14. $14? No way. So I sat there with my Coke and enjoyed a cheap drink and said, I'm going to start out with a statement that's going to be horribly offensive to some. Some people are going to get really, really upset. This statement, this phrase has actually been banned in corporate settings. People say it kind of under their breath these days because they don't know what the response is going to be when they say it. You'll get back a glare, you'll get back a half a smile because they think the same way, but they're afraid to say it. It's a really dangerous phrase to say, but I think it starts our Christmas season off the right way. You probably already know what the phrase is, right? Mm-hmm. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. I love to say it out loud because I can't say it when I'm in a store. I walked out the other day, and as I was pushing my cart full of groceries out, I turned to the side and said, Merry Christmas. I kept walking in case I had to run because they might get upset with me. But I love to say it because it just kind of torques some people off. And there's a little side of me that loves to get people upset, so I'll say to them, Merry Christmas. And some of them will smile, shake my hand, and say, Merry Christmas back. As we go into this season, is it ready to go? All right, let's try this. I find myself in a funk. Every Christmas at the start of December, I start to kind of spiral a little bit. I don't know if this is true of all of you, but Black Friday comes and goes, and it's just this carnage of buying and picking up stuff and fighting each other for the last TV set. And all these horrible things show up on the news, and I look at it and I think to myself, is this what Christmas is all about? I have a bunch of little traditions I do to try to get myself in the mood and get my Christmas spirit flowing. One of them is I bring out my Christmas socks. I've got a real nice pair that shows Santa Claus falling into a chimney. It says bottom up. I like to wear those. I bring out my Christmas ties. And I've got several of them, but in my current role, I don't get to wear ties very often. Matter of fact, nobody wears ties. And if you wear a tie in certain restaurants, what do? They cut it off. It's like, I'm not letting you cut my tie. But I find myself in a funk about this time every Christmas, and I'm trying to figure out how to get myself into the Christmas mood. You know, if there's not some snow on the ground, that makes it kind of tough. I put together a Christmas list. This is one of the things I do. Drives my wife crazy, though, because my Christmas list is generally multiple pages. And she says, how could you want so much stuff? And it's like, well, you asked me what I want, so I'm just listing it out. See, one of my love languages is presents. So you got this little boy, he's sitting in the side, he's got one present, and he's opening it, and he's squalling because it isn't what he thought he should get. I have the same kind of issue. I love presents. And because giving presents or receiving presents is my love language, I like to give a lot of presents. My wife goes down to the dollar store, and she buys a cart full of dollar items. I get more toothbrushes, deodorants, combs, flosses than any man should have, so she can wrap each one of them individually. And then when I sit down on the floor with my pile of presents, there's this mound. And I'm working my way through all the deodorants and all the toothbrushes and the pens and the socks. She figured it out a long time ago. We've been married now almost 35 years. She figured out a long time ago it wasn't about quality as much as it was about quantity. As long as I got lots of presents, I was happy. Does that sit well with you, that I have to have lots of presents? It doesn't, does it? It doesn't sit well with me either, but it's kind of like one of the things that Christmas has become is this thing about gifts. It's just too much. So I was thinking about after Pastor Jim shared me and said, hey, why don't you come out and preach? I was thinking, what can I talk about? I was doing some research on it, and I stumbled across these statistics. $9.2 billion was spent during Cyber Monday. That's not million, that's billion. That's a lot of money. My oldest daughter shopped completely online. There's a continual Amazon parade past my house all the time. I got one of those Ring doorbells, and it's going off all day long. Somebody's at your door, somebody's at your door, somebody's at your door, and I'm thinking, are they taken or given? The sports parasites, they take. My daughter does all of her shopping online completely. She might go to a store just out of nostalgia. And she goes in there, gets in a line with 40 people at a checkout thing, and she gets so upset she leaves. Leaves the gifts. She said, I'd rather sit in the couch and do that. 9.2 billion is actually up 17% over last year. What does that mean for all the little strip malls and all the little stores? I went into a mall on Friday, because I'm still a traditionalist, to look for my wife for some gifts, and I think I was the only one there. There was a handful of salespeople, but I was like the only customer. Everybody is online doing their thing. Black Friday sales online were 7.4 billion. 7.4 plus 9, we're talking, $16 billion of gifts. 2.4 spent on using your smartphone. When was the last time you went to the library or went to a bookstore and purchased a book? I do all my book purchases online through my phone. Somebody will say, John, you got to read this book. I look it up and purchase it right there. 86% of Americans will spend some amount on Black Friday. 86%. That's not me. Black Friday comes around, I am parked in my house, and I'm not leaving because every time I do, I get into traffic, and I get into all the craziness, and I just can't do it. I went one time and wanted to get a chop saw they had at the local Menards. It was a lumber place back in Illinois. And I went at 4 o'clock in the morning to stand in line. And I'm standing in line dutifully, and when the store doors open, all these people run out of their cars and cut in line. I was like, why did I get here at 4? This is crazy. And it wasn't even that good of a chop saw. Average spent by adults is $397. How does that compare to what you've spent? And I know you're saying to yourself, is this supposed to be a preaching message, or is he just going to quote statistics at us? Don't worry, we're getting there. Hang with me. $397. I didn't spend that much so far, but I'm on my way towards it. And my wife is, monitoring the check or the credit card. The other thing I learned, she learned to buy me quantity. I learned to buy on the last day of the year because she watches the credit card all day long. And when we spend too much on the credit card, it ruins Christmas for her. So I can't tell her how much I spent. So you look at those statistics and you say to yourself, is buying stuff all that Christmas is about? Is it really just that? Is it really just about how many presents you get underneath the tree? Is it about the perfect gift? My oldest daughter is blessed with the ability to pick the perfect gift for everybody. And she spends all 12 months of the year doing it. She's watching you, she's listening, she hears you say something, and she'll go and buy that gift. And it's the perfect gift. If she doesn't get the perfect gift, or somebody bought the same gift that she got, it ruins her Christmas. And I'm thinking, is that what Christmas is all about, really? Just about gifts? Some of you are nodding your heads, saying no. I'm going to take us on a little journey through Psalm 23. Everybody knows Psalm 23. I'm going to take a little bit different spin on it, and I want to camp out in the first section. But if you'd read alongside with me, I think it's important just to get context. Let's take and read this, if you can see it from where you are. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I like that version, the King James Version, because of all the this on the end. I think it just adds extra weight. But you read through that, how many times have you been in a funeral where they quoted the valley of the shadow of death? I imagine that family with that mom that was killed is probably walking through the valley of the shadow of death right now. There's a gentleman that wrote a book called A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. You might have heard me quote this once or twice before. This book changed my life, and it changed the way I looked at Psalm 23. Philip Keller is a really interesting gentleman because he grew up in Eastern Africa back in 1920. He lived to be 77. He died in 1997. He wrote a book in 1970 called this, and what he did was he said, since he was a shepherd, he could speak to this very uniquely. He had been a shepherd on a ranch for 20 years, caring for sheep. And he read Psalm 23, and he said, now I understand why David selected what he selected as word pictures and explanations, because people are so much like sheep. We are just so much like sheep, and he said, this is how it all comes together. I want to key in on the very first sentence there. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That statement, that phrase, runs contrary to what we're all feeling right now in this season. Is it all about presence? Is it really all about presence? And he's saying right here, not if the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I want to take that apart, and let's just take a walk through it really quick, and then we'll close up with some thoughts on how we can make Christmas not about giving. The Lord. I'm going to take the first two words, stop right there. The Lord. The Lord is my shepherd, the Lord. What he's saying when he wrote that part is he's saying, not some underling, not Gabriel the angel, not Peter, Paul, not anybody else, but the Lord is my shepherd. When you have the Lord as your shepherd, you have the author of everything. The author of the universe, the author of our bodies, the one that loves us so much that he sent his one and only Son to die for us. You have the Lord as your shepherd, nobody else. When we can stand up and proclaim that, we should do it with a certain amount of vim. You know, it's like, the Lord is my shepherd, not somebody else. I'm not giving my life over to anybody else but him, and because it's him, I have access to the King of the universe.
Amen.
That right there should stop the whole conversation, and we should just sit and think about that for a little bit. The Lord. Not just somebody, but the Lord is my shepherd. What's it mean to be somebody's shepherd? Philip takes this statement apart and explains it in great detail, what it means to be the shepherd of a flock of sheep, what it means to be the pastor of a church. You all are the church, you're the flock, you're the sheep of this pastor, and we have a shepherd over us. And the shepherd is responsible for us. He's responsible to make sure we're fed, housed, protected. That's what a shepherd does for his sheep, and they make sure they stay healthy. One of the stories in Philip's book, he talks about a thing called scab. Scab is a disease, it's a highly contagious disease that sheep get. And they just rub up against each other and they get it. And it's like, it drives them crazy because they scratch all the time. And he says, a good shepherd would anticipate that and treat his sheep regularly and be on constant vigilance that they are protected from scab. If you wander into the wrong section of the pasture and you eat a weed you're not supposed to eat, there's a high probability you could die. And Philip would say, a good shepherd makes sure that we're not put in a place where we can get access to stuff that can kill us. How does that translate over to our shepherd here in our pasture? Bringing us up through the Word, showing us a better way to live according to the Word, protecting us, saying to us, hey, listen, I went out to lunch or breakfast a little while back with a gentleman who was a good friend, and we were sitting there over breakfast, and he looked at me across the table, and he says to me, I think you're a bit spitter. Bit spitter. I knew what that meant because I used to be a feed store guy working around horses. A horse that spits the bit is a horse that refuses to be led. What he was trying to communicate to me with emotional word pictures was that he considered me a person who does not do a very good job of following. And he says, I care so much about you that I want to make sure your life is as good as it possibly could be and that you don't end up in a ditch. John, you need to learn how not to be a bit spitter. You need to learn how to follow better. My first thought was take my glass of orange juice and throw it in his face, just for being a jerk. No, actually, I was overwhelmed that he'd be willing to say that to me. He's one of the shepherds in my life. He's willing to take the stick and whack me upside the head when things aren't going the way they should. So the Lord is my shepherd. So when we claim that statement, we're claiming that we understand our place in the hierarchy. We are sheep. We are following in a part of a flock. We are following our shepherd. Where he leads, what he says, what he does, and how he protects us. The Lord is our shepherd, and we could ask for none better. I shall not want. So this is where I want to center in on our conversation because of the craziness of this holiday. I shall not want is a statement that says all my needs are met, and I am at peace. All my needs are met, and I am at peace. Who can say that here in this room today? Good man, Tom. Good man, Brian. Think about that for a second. How many people do you travel in your day-to-day interactions, maybe at the office, maybe in a group, where you can look at people and say, they're truly at peace. They have what they want. My love language being gift-giving, of course, I'm big into gifts, and it's easy for me to slip over the line, and all of a sudden, I don't have everything I want. All of a sudden, I'm not at peace. I said to my wife, one of the items on my list this year was a rechargeable impact wrench. You take tires off them, and that kind of thing. Well, they make them with battery powered. I've got this ancient air compressor that I use that barely gets enough air and it leaks all over the place, but it's basically made using all my impact tools worthless. But now I got a battery chargeable one. Found out these things can range in price from $200 to $400. That's about $200, $400 more than my wife's willing to spend. It's like, okay, honey, we can figure it out. We'll get a coupon. As long as I got a coupon, she'll buy it. She looked at that and said, do you really need to have this? My answer to her was, what? I want this. I want this air impact because it'll make my life easier when I work on my car and my daughter's cars and we do stuff. I want this. Matter of fact, I'm going to take it up a level. I need this. I need this tool. So now she's in a quandary over how she's going to figure that out. She's busily searching for coupons. I shall not want is a statement I can say most of the time. I'm pretty happy in my life. I got everything I need. I got my family around me. I've got a job that I love to do. I get to hang out with folks like you. I've got a really good life. But every once in a while, I don't want something. I need it. And that flies in contrary to that statement right there. When you look at a person who is at peace, you see them lifting their hands in prayer. You see them bowing a knee. The one in the middle, the young lady, she's lifting both hands in prayer. She is at peace. She is settled with her shepherd, her Lord. She is exhibiting something that is a rare find in our society these days. Because you see people running from place to place, trying to get the next thing, trying to get the next promotion, trying to get a better job, trying to get the next thing they thought they needed or really wanted. Very rarely do you find somebody at peace. And as we head into our Christmas season, one of the gifts we could give our Lord would be to be at peace and rest in Him. That is a really tough topic because we spent $9.2 billion on Cyber Monday buying stuff that we needed. Lest we start to think about, well, as a Christian, I shouldn't have any problems. I shouldn't have to have any wants. I shouldn't have any needs because God's going to meet them all. He never promised us no pain. Matter of fact, in Mark 10:21, it talks about, and Jesus looking at him, loved him and said to him, you lack one thing, go sell all that you have and give it to the poor and you will have treasure in heaven. So he was talking very clearly about things, about stuff. That this isn't just about feelings, but it's about stuff. Go and sell all your stuff that's dragging you down, that's distracting you from following me properly. Sell all that stuff, and you will be in a better place to receive. Then you can truly say, I shall not want. In John 16:33, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. If you don't have peace, that statement right there says that you're not in Him. Wow. Now that is scary to me. I've been walking with the Lord now just about 37 years. You would think after 37 years of doing this, I'd be a whole lot better at it. But I'm not. I find myself not walking with Him, not in peace. And for me, that's really troubling, because when I'm not at peace, some things start to happen inside of me that drive the needs and the wants, and I start thinking about the stuff that I don't have, and I look over the fence at somebody that has the stuff I want, and it's like, I want that stuff, Lord, and my whole focus changes, and I drift farther away from Him. In this world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Here's your shepherd saying to you, don't worry about the pasture you're going to head into, if it's going to be safe for you or not. Don't worry about that, because I have overcome this world. Yes, you're going to have trials and tribulations. Sometimes you're going to get knocked down. The other day I was talking to a buddy at one of the places I serve, and he was asking me questions because he'd gotten knocked down. Matter of fact, he had lost his job. And when the senior-most person at a church loses his job, it's really, really shaky. And he was really suffering. He got knocked down 3 weeks before Christmas, yada, 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 just one of those things. And he was horribly upset, and he said, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I'm serving the Lord faithfully. I'm doing what He asked me to do every single Sunday. I'm giving, I'm preaching, I'm giving up myself. Why would the Lord knock me down when I'm doing all this for Him? I said, John 16:33, fresh in my mind because of this. It says there'll be tribulations. But it's how you stand back up after you get knocked down. How you allow the shepherd to minister to you in that is what makes it all work. If you can't stand back up in a way that brings God glory, we got to step back from that for a second and figure out what your motivation and goals are. He never promised us no pain. Now, a contented flock, a lot of his book speaks to this and describes it. You see that sheep, he's there in a green pasture. A contented sheep is given what they need to survive. If you went home and looked at all the places I have food squirreled away, I have a whole pantry full of food, I have a pantry around the corner full of food, I have 2 refrigerators full of food, I lack for nothing. Matter of fact, I could probably go a couple of weeks without food and still survive. But I have lots and lots of food. A contented flock is a flock that is fed properly, is fed on the Word properly. I know of a couple of churches that when you go there, very rarely do they open up the Bible or even quote it. But they'll tell you how you should feel about it. And it's like, wait a minute. I need my truth source. I need my pastor to be rich and green and lush in the Word. And that's what Pastor Jim does his best to do here, is crack open the Word and invite you into that story. Connect it to your life so you can apply it on Monday morning. Church isn't meant to be an hour on Sunday. It's meant to be 168 hours a week. The math on that should be correct. So a contented flock is one of the good field. A contented flock has good shelter. They can come underneath the arm of their shepherd and they can be sheltered. There's been several times, even in talking to this pastor as he lost his job and looked at what he was going to do next, in talking to him where I could throw an arm across his shoulder and tell him, God loves you. God knows exactly where you're at. You're not in this by yourself. You've got us around you. Let's walk through this together. There's shelter in that. There is a whole lot of people in our society, in our world today, that get out beyond their skis, find themselves in a bad situation, and then look back to see if there's any shelter, if there's anybody there to throw an arm on the shoulder. A good shepherd, a contented flock, has shelter, has a place they can turn to. I guarantee you there is a board that lives here, there's a pastor that lives here, that if you were in a place that needed shelter, you would have it. That's one of the great things about this church. Clean, fresh water. A contented flock has clean, fresh water. They drink from that. Relationships that are life-giving, invigorating here in this church. There are a group of people that know you, you have history with them, and they are part of your church family. You can drink clear water from them. It's a good, wholesome relationship, and it's what's needed when somebody figures out that you're a bit better. One might think that that'd be something to get punched in the nose over. I think it's a thing to get hugged over. A good shepherd swats away all the bugs. There's a fly swatter there. A sheep cannot lay down and rest, cannot be at rest and digest their food if they're plagued by a bad field, unclean water. Another thing that they get, predators. If there's a predator anywhere around, a cat, a dog, Philip tells a story of his sheep. He had 200 sheep in a pen, and he was standing outside there, and his friend pulled up in her car, and she opened the door, and one of those little tiny dogs, little yappy dogs, jumped out and went yapping across the parking lot. 200 sheep jumped up and took off across the field, and in the meantime, a couple of them got hurt because it was a mad scramble to get away from this little tiny dog. Sheep are incredibly easily unsettled. If there are any pests, so if they're being plagued by flies, they'll run headlong into fences, into logs, into trees, trying to get away from flies. A good shepherd clears away the things that bother you in your life. This is a way to tell whether or not your life is in the hands of a good shepherd. Do you have a bunch of annoying little things that are bothering you all the time? It might be a car that isn't running properly, that has a light on the dash that shouldn't be there all the time. You're looking at that light thinking, oh, I gotta fix this car, it's probably gonna be thousands of dollars, I'll be without it for weeks, and it just annoys you and you can't be at peace, you can't be settled on the inside. Maybe it's a health issue. A while back, my wife signed us up to do a service activity in Colorado Springs, and we were to go to the zoo and shovel bark around the landscaping of the new hippo pen. Well, in order to get to the part where we spread the mulch, we had to walk across these big boulders. It was a boulder field. As I'm walking across there, my ankle went sideways, and I went crashing into a ditch about 3 feet down. So my ankle's been hurting me now for about a month and a half. I don't know about you guys, but as I get older, it seems to take a little longer to heal. This used to be done in like a week. I'd be back on my wheels, ready to rock and roll. But here I am a month and a half later, and my ankle's still bothering me. And it bothers me all the time, and it annoys me, and I can't get up. Sometimes I get up from a chair and it hurts, and it's just an annoyance. When your life is in the hands of the Good Shepherd, He removes those kind of annoyances from your mind. He'll put you in counsel with somebody and say, hey, don't worry, it takes 4 to 6 weeks for these things to heal. You're okay, your leg's not going to fall off. I always tend to go to the extreme side sometimes. The shepherd or the tended sheep. There's a story in the Bible that talks about this. There are two shepherds you can give your life over to. You can give it over to the Lord, is my shepherd. Or there's another guy. That guy resides this side of heaven. He runs the show here, and he has several sheep that are reporting to him. The good shepherd's fields look like that. They're green and lush. They're organized. The sheep are in there contentedly. The other guy's fields look like that. Brown, no grass, no water, no good fencing so they can't be protected from predators. The sheep look horrible. They don't have any fur on them. They're down to, and the guy that keeps track of this is a tenant shepherd, sheepman. He's like a rented guy. Guy looking for some job, maybe he's really an electrician by trade, but he can't find any work, so he goes and tries this out. He doesn't really care about the job. He doesn't care about the sheep at all. He just cares about the paycheck every 2 weeks. There's a guy who you can turn your life over this side of heaven who doesn't really care about you. As a matter of fact, wants to see you dead. Wants to see you separated from your God. Which shepherd are you currently in residence with? Most everybody is in residence, I would believe, with the Good Shepherd. But how many people do you interact with on Monday morning when you go into the office who look like the sheep on the right? Their lives are emaciated. I worked at the Springs Rescue Mission down in the Springs for 3 years. And I was surrounded by sheep that looked just like the guys on the right. Emaciated, worn out. There was one gentleman, if you met him, you'd swear that he is 65 plus easy. And I always treated him like that, only to find out he was 42. The drugs, the alcohol, the living underneath a bridge, all that stuff had destroyed his body to the point that he looked emaciated like those sheep on that side. If your life isn't full of you in a lush field surrounded by your friends and good community, but it's more like the one on the right, we can help you escape. It's called the gospel. It's called the good news. The Lord sent His Son down to a planet full of sheep that look like the ones on the right. And He says, I want to save them all. Every sheep matters to me. If you haven't given your life over to the Good Shepherd, if your life feels more like the sheep on the right, if your life is plagued by bugs that bother you continuously all the time, and you don't have good community, you don't have clear water to drink from, you're probably not under the Good Shepherd's care. You're probably handcuffed, and the evil one is doing his best to make your life miserable. So here's some litmus tests that you can walk through to say, which shepherd am I being cared for by? Would people say your life is peaceful? Some people are Christians so they can check a box and say, hey, I got that one checked, and move on. It's kind of like life insurance. If I die, my family will get $250,000. And some people go to the Lord just for that reason. But in that style, in that type of relationship, you don't get protection from the bugs. You don't get protection from bad water, bad fields, bad predators. One of my buddies once told me, there's going to be a time when we get to heaven, and we're going to watch the movie of our lives. And I'm thinking God probably has better than DVD. We're going to watch 3D movie of our lives as it plays. We're going to see how many times we went through an intersection a second before somebody else come through that could have taken us out. How about the Israelites in the desert for 40 years and their sandals never wore out for 40 years? How many times did I was digging through my shoes today. I've got several pairs of shoes in there, and I can track those shoes back to the 90s. They're old shoes, but they're still good. But I've had them forever. They just keep on going. My car out there has 295,000 miles on it. It's a 1998. It's 21 years old. I love my car. I love my radio. I love the seat because it fits me. It's zippy. It looks good. I love my car. It's 21 years old. By now, you probably should have traded that in. But I have no intention. It just keeps on going. Every day I drive it, it's free. I think that's an example of being cared for by the Good Shepherd. Have you been around a person whose life is saturated with drama? And if it isn't filled with drama, they create drama to fill their life with drama because then they feel alive. And you talk to them and it's like, oh, your life exhausts me. Every week at the rescue mission, I would tell all the guys, there were 45 guys in there, and my office faced the hallway, so I saw them all day long. And I would tell all the guys, at 3 o'clock on Friday, do not come in my office. I'm done with you. I've listened all week long. I'm a really compassionate guy, as you can tell. Very empathetic. But for 4.5 or almost 5 days a week, I would listen to these guys tell me about the 5 baby mamas they have, and the 5 children they have, and how the baby mamas found out about each other, and they're making this guy's life a real problem. And it would exhaust me. It's like, I go out of my way to live a drama-free life. You guys seem to generate drama. I'm not interested in that. I would think. And these guys, believe it or not, most everybody in a rescue mission is a professing Christian. And I would think, boy, I don't know that you're following the right shepherd at this point, because your life shouldn't be like this. It should be a whole lot more peaceful than this. We can help you escape. If that's something that you're thinking about, wondering about, corner one of us board members, corner a pastor, corner Pastor Jim, and ask him about this. And say, my life isn't what John is describing. My life is not going well. And I think I need to commit it to the Lord. I need to make the Lord my shepherd, not this other guy who's running this place so shabbily. All right, we're coming in for a landing. A cautionary tale. Mrs. Gadabout. Philip tells the story of a sheep that he had. Out of his 200 sheep, this was the best sheep he had. It was perfectly formed, it was healthy, it produced great lambs, it was a beautiful sheep. By all accounts, it should have gotten a really great market price. It was incredibly healthy, and it was just a picture. He set the bar for all of his sheep by this sheep because it was such a good sheep. The trouble with Mrs. Gadabout was, no matter what field she was in, she was always trying to get out. She was always trying to get over to the next field. And he was on the shore in eastern Africa. He was on the shoreline, so when the low tide came in, the fence would end at a certain spot. Well, Mrs. Gadabout would make her way around the fence, come out on the other side. His property backed up to the property of one of these tenant sheepmen who didn't care at all. And Mrs. Gadabout would be on Philip's great field with this rich green grass and great, no weeds, no rocks, lots of good water, and she would do her best to get over to the field next door, which was brown, polluted water, emaciated sheep. She could never stay on her side of the fence. And Philip was willing to overlook that. You know, we all have a certain amount of looking over the fence and see the grass is always greener. There's actually a book about that. The grass is always greener on the other side. You know, I look over at a 2015 Honda Cross Tour, which is their all-wheel drive version of the Accord. Black on black, black interior, big wheels, big snow tires. And then I look over at my 98 car, and I think to myself, oh boy, grass is greener on this side of the fence. I sure do need, honey, I need that car. Matter of fact, I want it and I need it. If I don't have it, I can't do my job, honey. I'm building a whole case for that. I've got a little bit of Mrs. Gadabout in me. And what happens when I'm like that is I'm no longer at peace. The trouble with Mrs. Gadabout, what caused Philip to eventually exit her from the flock, and I'll leave it at that, was that she was doing it to the other sheep. I don't know if that's clear, but can you see there's a big group of sheep on one side and they're flowing through the fence to the other side. Mrs. Gadabout would lead all of her young lambs to escape all the time. So it wasn't that she was and particularly evil, she just wanted something else, and because she wanted something else, it translated to everybody else, and she was ruining everybody else's peace and settlement. And Philip would show up in the morning for his sheep, and there would be half his flock on the other side of the fence in the brown, dirty, nasty pasture with all the emaciated sheep, and the other half on the other side of the fence trying to get across because Mrs. Gadabout was the first one to do it. Is that how you see stuff on the other side of the fence? If you're settled, I shall not want is where we started this discussion, and then we talked about the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If you're saying that, then the stuff on this side of the fence is what God has for you, and it's the best for you, and maybe you ought to stay on this side of the fence and not try to get over there. Be at peace, let it go. I've let the Honda Accord Cross Tour go. And I look at my little car and I think to myself, it's free, it fits me, it's got a great radio. What more do I need? I trust you, Lord. Something happened. If God is your shepherd, every time you drive past a manger scene like this or a creche, if God is your shepherd, say a prayer. Remember Him. What is communion all about at the end of the day? It's the Lord saying, please take a moment on your very, very busy schedules to remember me. Just pause for a second and remember me. If God is your shepherd, as you drive around and see creches in these beautiful little displays, say a prayer and thank God that He is your shepherd. Serve. God really only has one treasure, and it's people. Love God, love people, that's the whole Bible summarized in a single sentence. God has only one treasure, and it's people. If you serve His people, you are in alignment with His heart. During this season, there are so many opportunities to serve. There's a little soup kitchen. We're serving the people that are coming in off the road a meal. And then as a way, we're pushing the desire for presence away from ourselves. I'm trying to figure out ways to serve my family instead of give them lists of things I need or want. I'm serving my family instead. So serve others. Set a limit on your spending. My mother also is plagued with the love language of gift giving. And my mother would spend enormous amounts of money. Boxes and boxes of stuff. Sometimes she wouldn't be able to afford food or clothing because she would buy so much at Christmas time, because that was her love language. If I could have said to her, Mom, a few less things would be just great. I don't need all this stuff. Set a spending limit on what you're spending. Maybe if you set a spending limit and you say anything above that, I'm going to give that to a charity or give that to my church. But I'm going to spend this much this year so I can pull myself out of this magnetic pull that the retail system has on us. How many people need a 77-inch TV? Wow, 77, you know how great my Call of Duty game would look on a 77-inch TV? It would be unbelievable. It's not really is. We set a spending limit. Lastly, you look at this one. When my grandfather was on earth, he would make us Christmas presents every year. One year I got a very elaborate rocking horse from him that he'd spent hours on. Sitting up on top of the bookcase in my office is a couple of birds that he carved. He carved ducks all the time. And he gave me a little Jenny Wren that I put up on my shelf. Those gifts mean so much more to me than the plastic doodads my mom bought me that same year for Christmas. Now I've got these things, and they mean the world to me, and they're nostalgic. If you can make something, my wife is a really good crocheter. She's always crocheting something, to the point where she's got carpal tunnel now in her wrist, so she has to wear these braces, but she won't stop. She keeps on making blankets. There's a story that I read the girls every year called Granny Glittens and Her Amazing Mittens. And Granny made her mittens out of yarn she soaked in different flavors of candy. So every time she handed out her mittens, the kids would eat the mittens because they tasted like candy. And I look at that and I think, what a great story of caring for people and creating something that will keep forever. If God is your shepherd, do a couple of very tactical, on-the-ground things to show that He's your shepherd. It ain't much, but it's all I got, says a little boy as he lifts his heart to God. And God says, it's all I ever wanted. It's all I ever wanted. God sent His one and only Son to die on a cross so that we might be reconciled with Him for all eternity. What better gift can you give your Lord than to give Him your heart? Let Him be your shepherd. If you need help escaping from the tenant sheep man right now, and from his barren fields, we're here for you. You matter to God so much that He sent this church here to do exactly that. To get people off that field and into a rich field with their shepherd Lord. The little picture is so simple, yet means so much. What can you give Him? You can give Him your heart. Let me close this in prayer. Father God, we love You. We love You. We love Your Son, Your Holy Spirit who resides in us, Your Son who died for us. Lord, we love Your bride, the church, and the opportunity it presents to be a place where sheep can be properly cared for. Lord, forgive us the times when we're unsettled and not at peace because something has caught our eye and caused us to want, to need, and to look beyond all that You provide for us, Lord. Lord, You are the good shepherd. You know how best to care for us sheep, and You're patient with us, and You love us. Lord, what more do we ask other than, Lord, we give You our hearts. Here's my heart, Lord. Do what You will with it. May I bring You glory in all that I do. And Lord, would You please help those trapped on that tenant sheep man's property to escape. Merry Christmas, Lord. Thank You so much for this holiday and for Your Son. In Your Son's name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.